Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Drew and Buddy. Good to have you, Drew.
Good to be here.
Looking forward to a good conversation today about the 62nd verse of the Tao Te Ching. I do want to start mentioning one resource for you guys every week and try to rotate those. The resource I want to mention today is the episode notes on each podcast. There's several things there. There's 30 tools to stay sober. There's a link to a online Tao Te Ching that has multiple translations that we use actually in our conversation. Our private Facebook group, a nightly AA meeting that's been going since the first of the pandemic. Link there for that. Different calendars. There's a Google calendar for a thought for the day and a Course in Miracles calendar if you'd like that. So, and some other resources there. We mentioned a daily topic email, Transitions Daily, and also other resources at buddyc.org. So take advantage of that if you're so inclined. They are there for your use. Share them wherever that there's folks that can benefit. So just want to bring some of those things to your attention. Okay, the 62nd verse of the Tao Te Ching. Drew, why don't you read the Stephen Mitchell and I'll read one for us after you do.
Okay. The Tao is the center of the universe, the good man's treasure, the bad man's refuge. Honors can be bought with fine words, respect can be won with good deeds. But the Tao is beyond all value, and no one can achieve it. Thus, when a new leader is chosen, don't offer to help him with your wealth or your expertise. Offer instead to teach him about the Tao. Why did the ancient masters esteem the Tao? Because being one with the Tao, when you seek, you find. And when you make a mistake, you are forgiven. That is why everybody loves it.
Thank you, Drew. This is Jonathan Starr, the Tao Te Ching, the definitive edition. Any books we reference, if you go to buddyc.org under resources, there's a bookstore. We have, I believe, all the books we use should be there. Easy links to Amazon for you. Also a way you can support the podcast. The Tao, this is Jonathan Starr. Tao is the treasure house, not a treasure house. The Tao is the treasure house, the true nature, the secret source of everything. It is the great wealth of those who are awake, the great protector of those still sleeping. If a person seems wicked, do not cast him away. Awaken him with your words. Elevate him with your deeds. Requite his injury with your kindness. Do not cast him away. Cast away his wickedness. When the emperor is crowned or the 3 ministers installed, they receive a gift of jade and horses. But how can this compare to sitting still and gaining the treasure of Tao? This is why the ancient masters honored the inward path of Tao. Did they not say, seek and you will find, err and you will be forgiven? Within this is where the world's treasure has always been.
I like that line in Jonathan Starr about elevating someone with your deeds. Just one thing I've noticed, especially with sobriety, is when I've quit using and been around people who still do, and I just go about living, trying to have a good time without alcohol or anything, and they see that over and over, then I know from experience that they'll come talk to me about what it's like to live without alcohol because they're curious and they to give it a shot. Teaching by doing instead of by talking. That's what I get out of that line, and I've seen it in action. I think lots and lots of people with substance abuse problems, they can get talked to all day long. They can hear all the facts. They can hear people's stories, but seeing people actually living a satisfying, sober life is what motivates a lot of people, myself included, to actually start giving it a shot.
Drew, let's use the Jonathan Starr translation today. I think that's got a lot of meat in it. We'll just talk through it. You've already pulled one good nugget from it. We'll just start at the beginning, and I'll just read stanza by stanza, and we'll talk about it. I thought it's interesting. The first one, it says, "Thou is the treasure house, the true nature, the secret source of everything. It is the great wealth of those who are awake, the great protector of those still sleeping." But it doesn't say it is a treasure house. It says it is the treasure house and the true nature. When I think about something from the place of being my nature is much different than me thinking of rules I'm supposed to obey or commandments, let's say, or anything. I'm not attacking Christianity. I'm just thinking of the difference in attitude. If this is the true nature, that would make sense. I know from the 9th step promises that we suddenly realize God's doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. That's our true nature shining through. It doesn't say it is a true nature or a form of nature. It is the true nature. So could it be that our fears, which generate our feelings and our emotions and our character defects and our actions that we use to protect those fears, that's covering up our true nature maybe? I've said before, when I start surrendering my fears, getting rid of those things, I don't want to go kill people. I want to be nice. My true nature's coming through, right?
It's that wu wei, that effortless action.
But I just approach it differently if I know there's nothing for me to accomplish. There's not. And this lets me take the idea of doing the will of God, in air quotes, to a different place. If I'm compassionately living, trying to do the will of God or the will of love, let's say, is not a problem. And it makes it even easier when I'm just looking at the next right action. I'm not looking even an hour from now or a day from now or years from now. I'm just looking at this very moment. That makes it so much easier to surrender, because it's really talking about surrendered living.
Yeah, and looking at the moment from a non-ego perspective. How can this moment benefit me? What are people going to think about me in this moment? But more of what can I do? How can I help? Reminds me of if in the past, if I've tried to look cool, then that guarantees that I'm not going to look cool. If I try to, say something with the intention of making people think I'm smart or making people think I'm funny, then I'm going to guarantee that they don't think I'm smart or they don't think I'm funny. Trying to manipulate what people think about me by my actions. That's something that people see through, and just takes me out of, like you said, doing the next right thing, taking the right action. letting my true nature through.
And it really is the next righting action, the next balancing action. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. It's a paradox because what I tried to do in the past to, like you said, make myself whatever never worked. But if I let that go and have an intention of helpfulness, it doesn't take these huge things. Just how can I be helpful right now? Can I listen right now? Can I listen to Drew, or am I busy trying to come up with the next great comment to make? Mm-hmm. That's the difference. It's not doing some overt thing or sending a grand to Africa for food distribution or whatever, which nothing wrong with those things. But I think this is more talking about what can I do right now in this moment? And this is our nature. Doesn't mean we're walking in it, but it is our nature. This is the true nature. So instead of adding this, all we have to do is take away the things that are hindering it. It makes it so much easier, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, that whole idea. Now, how about this next sentence? It says it's the source of everything. It is the great wealth of those who are awake. So we have two groups of folks here. One group that's awake and one group that's still asleep. So that would encompass everyone, I would think. So it's the wealth, the great wealth of those who are awake. I would think more awake spiritually, awake to this path. Mm-hmm. And it protects those who are still sleeping as if they may awake. It doesn't say that those that are lost or doomed or any of that kind of thing. It says it protects those that are still asleep. Whether they wake up or not is irrelevant. It still protects them. And if they awake, then it's the wealth to them. I think great wealth, of course, is more than money, right? Everything, the source of everything, the source of the peace and joy that we're really looking for, whether we have money or not.
I take the sentence about it protecting the people who aren't awake as applying to my own life. When the Tao is working through me, I'm protecting the people who aren't awake. I'm not chastising them. I'm not trying to put them down. I'm not judging them. I'm not, hurting them. But when instead trying to lift them up, trying to help without making it about me, just letting them find their own way, maybe guiding if I can. But I hadn't really thought about how that line could apply to my own life, but that's what I see in that.
Thank you, Drew. I hadn't seen that. Thank you. Also, we're only partially awake. I don't know anyone that I think is truly wide awake.
Yeah, like in the Stephen Mitchell translation, no one can achieve it. Yeah. It's never something that you're going to be there. Pure enlightenment in the Buddhist tradition. For a recovering perfectionist, it's hard for me to hear that I can never achieve being totally in the Tao or something. But it is freeing to know that it's always a journey and never a destination. Never going to totally 100% be there, which is good because once if I were to get to there, then I'd start worrying about losing it, living more in fear of losing the perfection I've achieved, rather than just trying to maintain the path and noticing where I screw up. And like the last chapter said, realizing my mistakes, admitting it and correcting it. So yeah, it's like the title of the Tao Te Ching says, it's a path. not a you know, not a destination.
Yeah, the last part of that second stanza in Stephen Mitchell, the Tao is beyond all value, and no one can achieve it. No one. That's the switch from achieving to being our nature. If it's part of our nature or is our nature, that makes it so much, I don't want to say attainable, able to realize, I guess would be a way to say it. Of course, words are imperfect when we're talking about these things. If a person seems wicked, do not cast him away. Awaken him with your words. Elevate him with your deeds. Requite his injury with your kindness. Don't cast him away, but cast away his wickedness. Maybe the way we cast away his wickedness is by responding with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
When someone's trying to injure us, let's say, not physically, but any ways that people try to attack us in some way, can we respond with kindness? And in doing so, we cast away their wickedness by responding with kindness. Doesn't mean we have to be a doormat, but there's ways you can respond with kindness without being a doormat. You cannot attack back. Many times, I know from experience, when I attack back, most of the time, it doesn't accomplish anything. And after the whole thing's over, I wish I'd have just kept my mouth shut and went on. I can't recall any times when I got in an actual argument. And most of those arguments were about things that really didn't matter.
I think from personal experience, when somebody attacks me or if I attack somebody, it's much more about seeing something in the other person that you don't like about yourself. Seeing something you're envious of, or seeing something that reminds you of a trait in yourself that you wish you didn't have. Maybe something you did in the past that you're embarrassed about. I've come to know if somebody makes fun of me for something or puts me down or something like that, it's saying 99% of it is them attacking or making fun of or trying to hide a fear, a judgment about themselves. And I've been there, and it's not a good place to be. If I can recognize that what they're actually, it's not personal to me. I just happen to be the person who reminds them of something that they don't like. I can respond kindly. I can ignore it or change the subject or something like that, rather than take it personally, get defensive, start attacking in response. It's not about me, even though it feels personal, even though it may be directed at me. It's recognizing it's not about me helps me respond with that kindness that diffuses the situation, maybe makes the other person see that they do have nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to fear. Help lead by example.
Thank you, Drew. I was just looking at Wayne Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, which is actually a translation and commentary of the Tao Te Ching. He uses a couple of different words. Well, one different word that I really like, I found Jonathan Starr from his book, actually. That's what he primarily used. Instead of requite, he used repay. So elevate him with your deeds, repay his injury with kindness, with your kindness. Also, too, I had something marked here that I didn't catch. It says, if a person seems wicked, not that they were wicked, they seem wicked, don't cast him away. I was automatically thinking Bible stuff, and I thought this was a wicked person, but it's not. It's a person that may appear to be wicked. That's totally different if I look at they look like they're wicked. They seem to be wicked, but are they really wicked? Is it really them that's doing this?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what you were talking about, Drew, about not taking it personally, too. Yeah.
If somebody seems wicked, that's only because I'm judging them to be wicked. Nobody is wicked. There's no physical attribute of wickedness, no objective wickedness.
But there is fear.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I had the presence of mind to pause when this attack is starting and think, okay, what could this person be afraid of? If that was my go-to before I started all of the rumination and the BS building and all of the attacking and all of the stuff in my head, I could better, even if I had difficulty not taking whatever it was personally, if my first question is, what are they afraid of? Then that goes a long way to my response being better, because the only way to diffuse the situation in my thinking is to offer a solution to what they're afraid of. Because that's the ultimate question every time. So you can't ask people that. They're not going to understand what they're talking about. But you can ask yourself that question. What is this person afraid of? If you sit with it for a minute, you'll probably start seeing it. So how can I answer that fear with a compassionate response, a kind response? It reminds me of the Bible verse that talks about perfect love casts out fear. So responding compassionately will diminish the fear in this interaction. The first thing they teach is respond calmly, not in an excited voice. Because if you're excited back, I used to get excited, not even realize I was excited in those situations. I'd be yelling and not realize I was yelling. Yeah. And it's interesting there, you're not throwing the person away, but you're disseminating their fear, their wickedness. You could put, they are fearful though. They seem wicked because they're fearful, in my thinking. So you cast away their fear. When the emperor is crowned or the 3 ministers installed, they receive a gift of jade and horses. But how can this compare to sitting still and gaining the treasure of the Tao? Okay, so we're giving an action we can take to attaining the treasure of the Tao. It's not very often we see actions in here like just an action to take. How can all those good things, wealth, fame, position, compare with the Tao? And you gain the Tao, the treasure of the Tao, by sitting still. One thing I think that could be talking about, obviously, is meditation, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else?
We don't have many opportunities in our lives to approach a new leader and teach them about the Tao. When a president gets elected, I can't just drive up to the White House and say, hey, I need to teach president about the Tao, or even the mayor or the governor or president of the school board, whoever. So how can this apply to me? And one of the ways that I can see it applying to my own life is if I get a raise, if I get an inheritance, if I get commended for something, if I get elevated to a new position, I get a promotion, don't let that go to my head.
Mm-hmm.
If I gain some wealth or I gain some expertise, then I need to remember to stay centered in the Tao. getting some wealth, getting some position of leadership, getting some accolades feels good, and usually leads people and myself to want more of that. Take my eye off the real prize and start going to the things that are fleeting and come and go, and the things that you can never get enough of. You can never get enough money, never get enough respect, never get enough accolades. So that's another one of those things where I've never tried to apply this stanza to myself. I've always just skipped over it because, like I said, we don't get many opportunities to approach a newly elected person and say, hey, let me teach you about the Tao. Because as the book says, even in this chapter, you don't really talk about it. Just talking to people about the Tao, telling them how to live life, that's not really the way to go about it. Live by your actions instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we can flip this one and talk about a personal application. So that's the good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting still and gaining the treasure of the Tao. Now, a lot of these translations say, offer instead to teach him about the Tao. And the one that we were reading says, sitting still and gaining the treasure of the Tao. For personal application, that's probably a good approach. That really is how it works for me. There's meditation. How about when I come into a situation, I do the 5 count or 10 count and pause for a moment. Just pause before I respond. Or the 2 count pause even. Any amount of pause for me helps. Because if I'm pressing forward, I'm asleep. I am not awake. I can't see clearly what to do if I'm all caught up in me. That's the whole point of being awake, is so that I know what's going on. I can't respond if I'm asleep or if I'm groggy. I can't see what to do. So the whole point that I see is waking up. So one thing I can do to start waking up is being still.
Focusing on my breath always helps with that.
And then asking the question, maybe, if you would like, are these people afraid of something? Why are they attacking me? How can I answer their fear how can I respond to their fear with a solution to their fear instead of what I'm hearing? I used to buy a lot of houses. I never bought them through the multi-list. I just saw a for sale sign, or if I saw someone moving out or those things, I'd stop and ask what was going on, or saw a yard sale is because people have yard sales before they move. The first thing I had to do was figure out what they really needed. It wasn't always money, or if it was money, it was a specific amount. I bought a house one time. They needed to pay off a credit card that was $1,500. That's all they needed. So I paid off their credit card and bought the house. They may need a U-Haul, maybe to go to another state. I'd rent a U-Haul, one size bigger than what they needed if they wanted it. And I would get the house. But this is not different from that, really. If we're in a heated situation, how can I answer their fear? Not really answer their words. And the thing to remember, too, for me is they would be responding this way to anyone in this situation. They're not attacking Buddy, which I used to think it was always attacking. Everything's about me. So why would that not be about me, too? So I would take it all personally and attack right back and try to attack harder, all the things we do. When I realized they're not really attacking me, they're upset because there's something they're afraid of. Maybe I can't answer their fear, but if I sit still and allow myself to awaken to the interaction, I have a much better chance of coming up with a good solution than I would otherwise.
That reminds me, I'm a director of a nature preserve nearby, and it's close enough to walk to.
I thought you ran a pickleball court. No, that's not.
Well, I'm multi-talent. I'm a Renaissance man. So I'll go there and just walk around on lunch break or after work or something like that. And for many reasons, we have a policy of you can bring your dog, but the dog's got to stay on a leash. And a lot of people go and take their dog off the leash, and if I see him, I have to tell him, hey, I'm a director, and we do have signs up saying, you got to keep your dog on a leash. If you put your dog back on a leash, appreciate it. And most of the time, people say, oh, I'm sorry, and put the dog on the leash and go on. But every now and then, people just get rude and angry, raise their voice, yell, argue, and I've responded in kind. I've raised my voice back. I've,
Surely not, Drew. I just couldn't see you doing that.
There was one lady who I had to tell. She just, every time I saw her, she had the dog off the leash, and I finally started videotaping her once with me telling her, you need to start keeping your dog on a leash. And she yelled. I started yelling back, sent it to some people on the board, and they asked who's the guy doing the yelling. I said, that's me. And they said, I've never heard you raise your voice. I can't believe you sound like that. That's you? Are you serious? And I wasn't proud of it. She just really pushed my buttons.
That was a long time ago, Drew. That was
a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Preface it with that, please.
Yeah. But I realized, what are people afraid? Why are they raising their voice at me? Why are they upset? They're just going about their day. They're in nature preserve, thinking about whatever, or maybe not thinking about anything, just listening to the sounds. And then they get a little snap into reality that they're breaking a rule. And nobody likes to think of themselves as a rule breaker. Rule breakers are other people. Other people need to follow the rules. And I'm sure they feel a little embarrassed. Nobody likes it when you point out to them that they're not following a rule in a nature preserve of all places. So I think that's where a lot of when I get pushed back, when I get yelled at, when I get smart responses, I just try to let it be and thank them for putting the dog on the leash. And if they don't, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't force them to. So just have to realize people are going to be that way, and mentally thank all of the people who do follow the rules and people who do respect my request to put their dog back on a leash, and realize it is a small percentage of people who get upset and angry, and it raises my blood pressure when it happens, but I don't have to respond in kind. And that always leads me to feel better than the few instances where I have responded with yelling and smart responses and things like that. Those are definitely my least proud moments.
Hey, Drew, let me ask you a question. Was there any time that you showed your ass? I'll just put that all under showing your ass. That it helped?
No. The lady still brings her dogs off the leash. No matter how long I yelled at her, how much I raised my voice, she still keeps her dogs on a leash. Probably to prove to me that she can.
Bring your target pistol and put an end to that.
Anyway. But no, it has never gotten the goal accomplished, and it always makes my agitation last longer than when I just respond with a little kindness, or I just don't respond at all. And I told them what the rule is. If they want to follow it, great. If not, nothing I can do about it.
And maybe change the sign to, we have some people who do not leash their dogs as requested, but it is our policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And mark out the sum and put her initials beside it.
Uh-huh.
But that's bad when you've got other people too that are following their. Why do I have to keep my dog leashed if she doesn't have to hers?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that too. I see people here with their dogs off the leash.
Yeah,
they're not following the rules. It's like telling a cop when you get pulled over, I see other people speeding. That's not an excuse.
Yeah. Can I sit still? Can I take a moment? This is why the ancient masters honored, listen to this, the inward path of the Tao. So it's an inward path, which is everything that we're talking about here. The wickedness and all the other things, or the seemingly, that's all external to us. This is an inward path. The masters, they do not say, oh wait, didn't the masters say, seek and you will find, err and you will be forgiven? Within this is where the world's treasures has always been. So the world's treasures have always been within. And several of the translations talk about the seeking and finding. When you seek, because being one with the Tao, when you seek, you find. And when you make a mistake, you are forgiven. Why did the ancients value this Tao so much? This is Derek Lynn. Is it not said that those who seek will find, and those with guilt will not be faulted? Therefore, it is the greatest value in the world, the Tao is. I have realized my personal experience. It's not that when I'm walking, when I'm waking up to this spiritual path, then what I seek, I find. It's that seeking and finding is happening all of the time. And I just change what I'm seeking to something better. So my responses are better. I've always gotten what I sought.
You're not seeking to find something, but the act of seeking is what you are finding.
Maybe it's the fact that I am, whatever I'm desiring, I usually ends up happening.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously things that don't, but when I change what I'm seeking, Jesus said it, and there's a translation that says, seek and keep on seeking, and you will find. Knock and keep on knocking, and the door will be opened. It's not saying that you're knocking on the right door. I take it to mean whatever door I'm knocking on is going to eventually open. I should watch what doors I knock on. That's about the simplest way I think I can look at it. Same with seeking. What I seek, I will find. I need to watch what I'm seeking. And the good thing about walking in the Tao is that I start seeking the better things. My heart's desires are better. I'm quoting a lot of Bible this week, but there's another verse, I think out of Psalms, that said, I hear it quoted that God will give you the desires of your heart. Another translation of that says, God will give you the desires of your heart, then he will give you the desires of your heart. What they were saying was those desires would be put there first, and then you would get them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they looked at it. But the things I seek definitely change. And I've started seeking less, even to the point of seeking nothing. And that's come up a little bit. I try to pay attention to all that is always a balance. And But that's part of the waking up, is that whole process.
And I can also translate that when you seek, you find to what's the point of living on the path? Where does that get me? What's the destination? What do you want the destination to be? I want the destination to be peace and kindness and happiness and serenity and equanimity and those things. Staying on the path is how you find it. And just being on the path, just doing the seeking. When you're doing the seeking, you attain those things. You don't seek, and those things are off in the distance, and you'll eventually get there. They're there when you're on the path. They're there when you're seeking.
I've definitely realized that, well, Star says it here, that within is where the treasure has always been. We think it's something that we need or that's out there, or I've heard it described that it's like God would endow this to us and then we would give it out. We vertically we receive and horizontally we give, all those different things, which I've grown to not take anyone's opinions of things personally. I think we're all, if we're talking about a God of love, even though if we have our hell beliefs and all those things around it, I think for most of us, those varied beliefs are part of the path of waking up. So I don't judge or convince or argue with anyone about those things. The only time I even talk about it or try to talk about it is when someone asks me my opinion. You know, I don't offer it up. I don't defend or make sure they know what I think about something. It doesn't matter. All this is already within. And if it's already within, my seeking is just waking up to it. And the more I wake up to what's really there, the things I seek change. So what should we title this one? What do you think? What am I seeking today?
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah.
There was something we said earlier I thought was good. I can't remember.
We've said a lot that's good today.
I'm sorry?
We've said a lot that's good today.
Yeah, I'm grateful. Can I repay injury with kindness? That would be another one. I've always thought of 79 as being the resentment verse, but this one's a good one for that too.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to mention the second to last line in the Stephen Mitchell. When you make a mistake, you are forgiven. I think self-forgiveness is such an integral part of sobriety. Forgiving yourself for your mistakes, whether they're in the past or as they happen in the present, rather than beating yourself up and judging yourself and why am I such an idiot, and that self-talk is, I think, just from personal experience and from the people I've talked to and gotten to know with various addictions, it seems like that negative, critical, judgmental inner voice for a lot of us is always there and doesn't stop, especially when we're in our addictions. And I think for a lot of people in sobriety, myself and others I know, one thing that increases the chances of staying sober, and not just staying sober, but actually living a satisfying life, is that self-forgiveness aspect, turning that voice into a friend rather than a critic, rather than an enemy. Not that sometimes we don't need to be a little critical of our actions, but hear that voice and acknowledge it, and then forgive yourself. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's human. But I don't think beating myself up internally ever got me to a healthy place. being compassionate to myself, being kind to myself, talking to myself as I would talk to a friend, rather than talking to myself in a way that if I talked to a friend, they they wouldn't be my friend anymore.
Right. That last, or the phrase about when you make a mistake, some of the others say you will be forgiven. Mitchell says you are forgiven, as if there's nothing to be forgiven of, is the way I interpret that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at A Course in Miracles and some other teachings, they say there's nothing to be forgiven of. And we can only walk in that, I think, Drew, when we offer that same courtesy to others. There's nothing for them to seek forgiveness for. If we can get there, then I think that what I offer and extend to others is extended to myself. So it's not as if God changes us and then it's almost the opposite.
And I can see if there is an opportunity for forgiveness. I do Stephen Mitchell's translation, you are forgiven, that it's automatic. You don't have to earn it. It's not, whether it's myself who needs a little forgiveness or somebody else, rather than will be what needs to happen between now and when I will be forgiven. What penance do I need to do? What actions do I need to take to be forgiven? How long do I need to wait? Or if I want to forgive somebody else for a wrong they commit against me, how long should I make them wait? What should I have them do before they're forgiven? I like the automatic forgiveness. And like you said from Course in Miracles, if you can get to the place where, you realize nothing needs to be forgiven, then that's just one step further along the path. I think going from, I will forgive them in time, to, I can forgive them right now, to there's nothing that needs to be forgiven. But I think that's a great progression for people to try to live in.
Again, Drew, we're not suggesting anyone become a punching bag or all the extremes you could take this, Drew,
Mm-hmm.
to. But the majority of the things in daily life, I can apply this to. When, like you're talking about, is the lady that's not leashing her dogs, is she doing that to you? No. So is there anything really for you to forgive her of? You see what I'm saying? That makes it so much simpler. I'm sure there's some fear behind that. It is with me, with everything I do. For me, it would be, I want to be in control. If I let you control this situation, what else I'm afraid that you're going to take something I have or not get something I want. And that can go all kinds of directions. But ultimately, there's a fear behind that. So when I act out on that, am I personally doing anything to anyone? No, I'm really just acting out on my fear. My fear is acting out. I'm really not. So there really is nothing to be forgiven. Now, if I have offended another person, then I make that right. I'm not saying that you do harm, you don't need to make it right. That's not what I'm saying. I'm almost saying that this would be more of the opposite side of that.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm offended in some way, did they really do that to me? I can't think of hardly a situation. Someone I'm in a relationship with, let's say they fuss about dinner or something, okay? Or they would fuss with anyone they were in a relationship with that way. I can't even take that stuff personally.
Yeah.
Let's say my dad would do that I find offensive, like attacking me for something. He'd attack any son he had for that in this moment. He's not attacking me. that helps so much in not taking these things personally. If I don't take it personally, then I'm much further along in waking up to the fact that they did nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still stay on the inward path instead of getting off the path and getting out here. Thank you, Drew.
And I do think it's a little important to recognize, what you mentioned a minute ago. When you make a mistake, you're forgiven. That's not saying you never need to apologize for something.
Right.
It's not saying if I do hurt somebody, if I make a mistake that hurts somebody, or of course if it's intentional, I need to apologize. But I don't need to continue to beat myself up for it. I don't need to continue to flagellate myself internally. I can forgive myself for making a mistake or even doing something intentional because that came from a place of fear or anger or resentment or something like that. And if I can forgive myself for something like that, then I can more easily try to find what was the root of that action. What was the fear? What was the anger? Rather than beating myself up for it and then focusing on that anger towards myself, rather than, okay, I made a mistake. I can forgive myself for it. Now, how can I make sure that I don't do that again?
Yes. What I found is if I start extending kindness, that starts to happen automatically. And with time, I'll just see that I'm behaving differently and my true nature is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Drew. Anything else to add to the conversation? It's been a good conversation today.
No, yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah. Good. I hope you have a great week. Hope to see you next week. Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.